Hey guys, Adam here. In today's video, I wanted to give you a list of the basics, essential kit that you will need to be a wedding videographer. I know a lot of you watching this will be just starting out or wanting to learn how to start out. And I've been asked a fair bit recently about what kit to invest in. If you're just at the start of your journey, you don't have a huge budget, you're just wanting kind of a beginner starter kit. These are my suggestions for you. And I've tried to balance them between budget friendliness and ease of use, so they're dead easy to use straight out of the box. You don't need any prior training or experience. So hopefully this kit list is going to be as accessible as possible for all of you getting started in your journey. A quick point to note before we start, I've just done basic Google searches. I've gone on the kind of Amazon, Wex, B&H, the standard websites. If you want to shop around a bit more, you could find better deals for all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about now. In terms of budget, when you're starting out, you might not have huge money to invest in this. You don't have to buy these things brand new. There's a fantastic website in the UK called MPB that sell used, refurbished, second-hand equipment, and they do some great deals on all the standard camera equipment that I'm going to suggest in this video. So you can actually get these things secondhand from MPB. I'll put a link to that in the description. You're going to be able to get everything that you need for £4,000 or £5,000, $5,000 even if you're overseas, and that will give you all the equipment you could possibly need for filming a wedding. Once you start charging money and booking in clients, you can use that money to invest in all the other expenses as you progress, and it'll all start to snowball. So first things first, the cameras. To film a wedding comprehensively, you are going to need two cameras. I use two cameras. You don't need any. You could use more. You don't need any more, but you're going to need two. You can get by with one depending on what you're offering, but for a comprehensive standard kind of wedding videography package that is going to entice couples to book you, you're going to need two cameras. So obviously this is your biggest outlay, and again, you can pay monthly. You can get these cameras on pay monthly schemes, etc. But in the interest of starting out, budget friendliness, ease of use, I'm going to recommend the Sony A7S, the Mark 1s. Now the Sony A7S Mark III came out recently, so I still shoot with the S2s. The Mark 1 is the original model, but it's still a fantastic camera. It can't do some of the features that are in the S2 or the S3. You're not going to be able to shoot 4K. The stabilization isn't as good as the models that followed it, but you don't need to shoot in 4K. You use a monopod for stabilization. It's still a fantastic camera. So the A7S Mark 1 will do everything that you could possibly need. It's great in low light, which is perfect for weddings, because when you're outdoors and you're losing light, you don't need to worry about bringing extra lighting equipment, which is going to incur extra expense and just extra stuff to carry and learn about. I don't use any external lighting. I just use the ISO in these cameras, and it's brilliant. So the A7S Mark 1, now you can pick one of these up brand new for like £1,200. But then again, if you go online secondhand, if you look on eBay, you could probably get one around about £900, £800. You're going to want two of these. Now, if you do have a bit more money to play with, a bit more of a budget, then I would suggest going for the A7 Mark III. Not the A7S, the Sony A7 III, because that is a brilliant hybrid camera. It's great for photography as well as video. So if you do a bit of both, it's a brilliant choice for hybrid. And I'm seeing a lot of videographers switching from other models, Canon, Nikon, but even from the A7S2s, people are moving over to the A7 III. It's got dual card slots, it shoots in 4K, there's loads of extra little features and benefits. It's cheaper than the A7S2 as well. You can get a Sony A7 III for around about £1,700 brand new. If you've got that bit more budget, they are great cameras. If you can't make that step up, then the A7S Mark 1 is still fantastic for starting out with. Get two of these, get into your first year of wedding videography, and then once the money starts coming in, maybe look into investing in the next model up, the A7S2 or the A7 III, or even the A7S III after that. If you're not into Sony, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I've always shot with Sony cameras. I love the stabilization, I love the low light capabilities, I love the colors and the picture that you get. But as an alternative, the other camera brand that I would recommend is Panasonic, the GH5 from Panasonic. Now, one of those is similar to the A7S Mark 1. It's going to be £1,200 brand new or £1,300. Again, secondhand, probably cheaper, but the GH5 is fantastic, and it can shoot 4K, and it's probably got better stabilization built in than this does, but for me it's not as user friendly. The interface is a bit more complicated. I don't like the color the same. I prefer Sony, but personal preference. Do your research, do the little spec comparisons online. The Panasonic GH5 is a similar price to this and would do a great job for you. You're then going to need 2 lenses. You need a lens for each of those cameras. Now the reason I recommend 2 cameras for your wedding filmmaking is because when you're filming a ceremony or speeches or a first dance, generally you're going to want 2 angles on those key parts of the day, the ceremony, the speeches. You're going to want 2 camera angles. I always deliver and offer my couples an entire recording of their ceremony, so they've got that to watch back. Now I'm going to be at the front with one camera, and if I ever need to do any slight sort of movement, I want to be able to cut to the other angle so that you don't, on the video, you don't see me moving around with the camera. You cut to the other angle and you've got a different shot on a static somewhere else in the room, and that makes for a much more professional video. So that's the reason I use 2 cameras, and I need a lens for each of those cameras. So what I want to do is have a really wide angle lens so that I can stick a camera on a tripod and record a ceremony from the back of the room, and it's getting a wide shot of everything and it records everything. Same with the speeches. I can get a nice wide angle view footage of the speeches. Same for the first dance. And then on my other camera, I'm going to have a lens with a tighter focal length so I can get my general B-roll stuff, get close-ups when I do filming the couple, and I can get shots of them close up. I don't want everything wide angle, but there's certain situations, the ceremony speeches, where I really need a wide angle. So for your 2 lenses, I'm going to recommend a brand called Samyang, who do a brilliant range of prime fixed length lenses. They're dead small, nimble, lightweight. They're just fantastic. So I love the Samyang range, and especially starting out, they're really affordable. For your secondary camera, for your wide angle, I'm going to recommend the 24mm Samyang lens. It's f2.8 aperture. 24mm, this lens is nice and wide. It's going to give you a great shot down the aisle for the ceremony, the speeches, first dance, etc. And the size of the lens is literally that. It's super light. It's autofocus as well. I use manual focus. I shoot manual focus myself, but it does have autofocus, and you can get one of these for £280 on Wex. Just looking at that, you can pick up one of these for 200 and probably around 250 to £300. Super affordable. Really good little wide angle lens, the Samyang 24mm f2.8. The other lens that you're going to use on your main camera, so this is the wide angle camera is sorted. We've got an A7S, we've got a 24mm. We're going to put that on a tripod for the ceremony, the speeches, those parts of a wedding day. For your main camera that you're going to have with you at all times, getting kind of B-roll shots throughout the day, I shoot with a 55mm. I use a Sony Zeiss lens, which is quite expensive, but it's a 55mm prime focal length. So the nearest equivalent that Samyang do is the Samyang 50mm f1.4. and that's around £330. 50mm for me is a really good all-round focal length. It'll cover you for any situations. It's wide enough if you need it, but not too wide. A lot of videographers use an 85mm as their main lens, which is quite tight. The 50mm for me gives you that little bit of extra wiggle room. It's a bit wider, but it still looks really nice. And at f1.4, really wide open aperture, you're getting really shallow depth of field. So what it means, you'll get all that blurry kind of bokeh-ness in your footage, and it looks super cinematic. So I love using the 55mm focal length on my camera. The Samyang nearest equivalent is this 50mm f1.4, 330 quid. I've not used it specifically, but I have no doubt that that is a fantastic lens. That's what I'd recommend. Again, the focal length at this point is personal preference. You might want to use a tighter shot altogether. So the other option I'm going to give you is the Samyang 85mm, and it's a 1.5 aperture. So again, it's really shallow depth of field. But at 85, it's just going to give you a much tighter shot. It's great for kind of portraits, for bridal preps, getting really close-up shots of the bride's face, having a makeup done, things like that. 85mm can give you some really gorgeous cinematic results. And I have the lens here. It's got a manual aperture ring as well, so you can change the aperture. This isn't autofocus, it's manual focus, so you will have to get used to that. But it's also got this manual aperture ring as well, so that you can change the aperture smoothly and manually. I used to use this on my main camera until I got the 55mm. So I used to, there's nothing wrong with this, I loved it, but I invested in the 55mm just to give me a bit of extra width, bit of wiggle room in certain situations. I find it a better all-rounder, but this is still a fantastic option, and it's £300, so it's a really great affordable lens. Now, in order to stabilize your cameras, when you're filming a ceremony, for example, you're going to need to leave the camera recording for half an hour, longer sometimes. So you need to have something to stabilize. You can't hold on to it and keep it still for that long. So you're going to need tripods, monopods, etc. So for one of the cameras, I use a tripod. The other one, I use a monopod. The tripod that I recommend always is one of these Manfrotto aluminium. It's a light aluminium travel tripod, I think it's called. They're £44 on Amazon at the minute. They have been cheaper. They have been more expensive. They're generally around about £40 when I've bought them. At the minute, it's £44 on Amazon. But that is the size of the entire tripod, size of my arm, and it folds out to around about 5 foot. And they're super light and easy to travel with. I do a lot of traveling for weddings. These are fantastic for that. They're dead light. They take a clatter in as well. I bash mine around all the time. And they're so cheap that I don't mind buying a couple of these and just having one spare in my car just in case I ever need a backup or something. You're then going to want a monopod. So again, this is Manfrotto. This is it's a 4-section X Pro Manfrotto monopod. This is on Amazon at the minute for £130. It's got a locking plate at the bottom here, so that once you've planted the monopod, you can lock that and it'll kind of stay pretty steady. I would never leave it unattended, but it will stay fairly steady in most situations. This extends to around about 5-6 feet as well. Stick your camera on the top of here, and it just gives you that little bit of stabilization, sturdiness when you're filming a ceremony, speeches, whatever. You could keep your main camera on this monopod all day and you're going to get some really nice stable footage. But that is an essential purchase. £130 at the minute, brand new. So that's all your camera stuff sorted, the actual filming equipment. The other thing that is essential that you cannot compromise on is audio. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you will know exactly what I use for audio. It's these Sony TX650 little dictaphone recorders. They are literally, so when you're recording a ceremony and you want to pick up the bride and the groom doing their vows and get good audio of them, you simply clip one of these into the groom's pocket and that will pick up all his sound. They're dead easy to use, there's no wires or anything. So one of these is going to cost you £90 on Amazon here in the UK, but for most situations at a wedding, there's going to be 3 speeches. There's going to be the father of the bride, the groom and the best man, and you're going to need a recorder for each of those. So I'm going to say that you'll need 3 of these. I have about 6 in a pouch that is this big, and I keep them all in here. Certainly as an essential for starting out, you're going to want 3 of those as a golden rule. You've got to get good audio, no compromise, and with those little things, it's the easiest you're ever going to have it. Now, of course, you're going to need other things like SD cards. You're going to need batteries for your cameras. You're going to need a laptop or a PC computer to edit on. You're going to need editing software. So you're going to need hard drives to store your footage on. Then you get into things like music licensing and cloud storage and online services. There are other expenses, of course. In terms of computers and PCs, I'm hearing really good things about the new Mac Mini with the M1 chip, which I think is around about £700. In terms of computers with good enough specs for editing on, I'd look at those new MacBook Minis. I've heard they're really good. Either that or a refurbished MacBook Pro from kind of 2016 onwards. If you go on Apple's refurbished site, you'll be able to get a good deal on a MacBook Pro. But as I said before, a lot of this stuff you can kind of figure out as you go along, as you build your business. The thing to bear in mind though is that everything that I've talked about in this video is all you really need to create cinematic, high quality wedding films. You can make just as good a wedding film as anyone else in the industry with this equipment. Do not get bogged down with things like gimbals, drones, lighting. You just don't need it. Just get the essentials, get out there, get filming and start bringing in clients, bringing in money, and then you build as you go. So I really hope that this setup or these suggestions are going to be helpful for you. All of the links to the equipment that I've mentioned here are in the description below for you to check out, Amazon affiliate links, etc. There's a link to MPB, which again, if you're in the UK, is a fantastic second-hand refurbished website where you can get great deals on used equipment. But if you have any other questions or comments, then please let me know below. And if you like this video, then please subscribe for more just like this. I will see you next time.